Welcome to the Middle Mike channel. Today on Twitter, somebody asked what pocket knife to buy, and there were suggestions to get Benchmade. And this was a libertarian, pro-2A leaning person, so I kind of suggested that they probably shouldn't buy Benchmade, considering their anti-Second Amendment and donations to anti-Second Amendment candidates. And also, Surefire kind of fits in that category also. So with the new regime change that's happened, and we're kind of really on the defensive for the Second Amendment, I'm going to do something a little different and make a video of where gun companies in the last generation have went against the Second Amendment. It's kind of a warning to anybody who wants to make compromises now. Spoiler alert, 3 of these companies in their current state shouldn't suffer due to one of them quickly atoning for their mistake, and 2 others were under different ownership groups, with one of the offending owners being long dead. Only one should currently suffer or not receive business for their actions due to the same ownership group staying in place. While I say forgive, I'm not a big believer in forgive and forget, as these companies need to keep these mistakes fresh in their memories, not only for themselves, but for other companies. The first instance I talk about was the least egregious of the 4, as the owner made a huge judgment error, but his intent wasn't to benefit his company at the expense of everyone else as well as the Second Amendment. He just needed to make sure he knew what the hell he was talking about before making a statement. Fix NICS was a bill brought up after the Sutherland Springs, Texas shooting, where the shooter obtained his firearm after passing a NICS check. In true anti-gunner fashion, the point that the bad guys will get guns no matter what, and that the NICS should be abolished, was missed, and they doubled down with many of the Republicans and NRA jumping on board with Fix NICS. Under the Obama administration, Social Security rolls were mined to have those who were financially adjudicated added to the no-buy list, and this literally took an act of Congress to undo. There was this whole no-fly, no-buy debate in the 2016 election, where Donald Trump said he agreed with Hillary Clinton and this should be implemented. And this was my deciding factor to vote third party in that election. These are the kind of things that seep back in with Fix NICS, and as every possible name can be added. It became known as the traffic ticket bill, and the bill required every quote-unquote fugitive for justice to be added. This included many that just had unpaid traffic tickets. Already, most NICS denials, like 95% of them, are false denials. Adding every possible name just opens a Pandora's box. This bill had bipartisan support. John Cornyn, along with Feinstein, Murphy, and Blumenthal, were co-sponsors. And this was eventually snuck into law with the 2018 spring omnibus bill that also continued to fund Planned Parenthood. So Trump basically gave the middle finger to his base on 2 campaign issues with 1 signature. This is the background of Fix NICS. Marty Daniel of Daniel Defense, makers of very high quality AR-15s, and I actually own one, and this would be my go-to gun and shit hits the fan situation. Strongly encourage that we support Fix NICS in a letter to the public. The backlash was fierce, and he quickly retracted support. Since he listened to his customer base, whether it was out of fear of losing business or he actually realized he was wrong, my opinion was that he should be forgiven, as he didn't do like many others and double down on stupid. And I even made a video when it happened saying that we should give him a pass. This has still hurt his reputation in the eyes of many in the 2A community, and should be a lesson out there to know what the hell you're talking about before you take a stand on something, and look with a skeptical eye on any compromise that the NRA offers up. Perhaps the most well-known traitor to the Second Amendment was Strom Ruger owner and founder Bill Ruger. Most have a fuzzy notion in their heads about Ruger compromising on the 1994 assault weapons ban on magazine capacity to save the Mini-14. As I read a little more about the story for this video, I was shocked that he was much deeper into the magazine capacity than just being an enabling compromiser. He actually wrote the legislation and encouraged a magazine ban. On January 17, 1989, a drug-addicted drifter with a long criminal history, Patrick Purdy, set his fireworks-laden van on fire with a Molotov cocktail and opened fire on a grade school in Stockton, California with a Norinco 565 AK-47. killing 5 children before offing himself with a Taurus PT-92 pistol. This led to gun control advocates going on well-coordinated attacks to define and ban quote-unquote assault weapons. The ATF used the sporting purpose definition to ban imports of semi-auto rifles, and President George H.W. Bush made that ban permanent. Instead of joining the fight against these infringements, Bill Ruger actually had his brain trust at Storm Ruger write proposed legislation that would limit the capacity of magazines for all centerfire guns to 10 rounds fixed and 15 rounds detached. He basically did this in an attempt to save the Mini 14 and Mini 30 while sticking it to his competitors. George H.W. Bush wanted this in his crime bill, which effectively killed it, but it ended up being a centerpiece 4 years later in the Clinton assault weapons ban, where the capacity was lowered to 10 rounds. 4 years after that, the NRA would sing Ruger's praises, mainly thanks to a $1 million donation, ignoring the fact that he was the man who once told Tom Brokaw, "No honest man needs more than 10 rounds in any gun. I never meant for simple civilians to have my 20 or 30 round magazines or folding stock, and I see nothing wrong with waiting periods." Bill Ruger was our Vidkin Quisling. Now, there are many who hold these actions against Sturm Ruger to this day, which is a bit of an overkill since Bill Ruger Sr. himself died in 2002, and his son Bill Jr., who took over after Bill Sr. retired in 2000, retired himself in 2006. Leadership since the retirement of Bill Jr. would right the ship by producing 30-round magazines for the mini rifles again after the assault weapons ban sunset in 2004, and would develop Ruger's AR-15 line that is now very successful. Ruger's also has a very successful pistol caliber carbine. This is a case of the people currently in charge had nothing to do with Bill Sr.'s actions, and Ruger has shown itself as a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. Forgive, but remember in the same attitude that I will have for the next entry on this list. Two different stories merged in 2000 to create what was perhaps the most egregious betrayal by a gun company to gun owners in the Second Amendment. It was researching the infamous Hillary hole, which, if you have any newer Smith & Wesson revolver, you have one of these. On my 686-6 for that video, that gave me the idea for this video. Let's start with Smith & Wesson. In 1965, the Wesson family sold its controlling interest in Smith & Wesson to Bangor Punta, who would go on to build upon Smith's success in the late 60s through the 70s with high-quality revolvers and accessory sales. If you watch my 686 video, you'll know that it was developed in 1980, and while it was very high quality, the time of police officers armed with the six-shooter was coming to an end. Thanks to the drug war, police became more well-armed and favored semi-automatic pistols. Plus, movies like Die Hard and Lethal Weapon drove demand toward pistols like the Beretta and Glock, even though Glocks pretty much held mythical status thanks to the Glock 7 line in Die Hard 2. Although Smith started producing stainless steel semi-autos, the writing was on the wall. Smith's profits dropped by 40% in the mid-80s. Bangor Punta was acquired by another company in 1984 and started selling off some of its pieces, including Smith & Wesson, to a British company called Tompkins Pick for $113 million in 1987. Tompkins modernized some of the production and increased quality, but it was still under this leadership that Smith & Wesson bungled the introduction of a firearm to fire its .40 Smith & Wesson round. Somehow, Gaston Glock got his hands on the ammo at SHOT Show, and Glock beat Smith & Wesson to be the first to sell a firearm to shoot this round. The 90s continued Smith & Wesson's downslide, which is part of a downtime for the gun industry in general thanks to gun control legislation. The 90s also saw municipalities try to sue gun companies in an attempt to gain settlements like they did with Big Tobacco. Not only was Clinton and early Democrat majority successful in passing gun control legislation, side note, do not exonerate the Republicans here, as Ronald Reagan himself supported the so-called assault weapons ban, but he would weaponize executive branch agencies against the Second Amendment as well. The Department of Urban Housing and Development, more commonly known as HUD, was headed by Andrew Cuomo, now governor of New York. HUD offered relief from the municipal lawsuits as well as no-bid government contracts. Companies like Beretta and Glock basically told Cuomo to go piss up a rope, but the British Tompkins-owned Smith & Wesson listened and was willing to strike a deal with the devil. In return for eliminating the lawsuits and offering up lucrative no-bid contracts, Smith & Wesson would agree to putting disabling trigger locks on all their firearms, invest in smart gun technology, not design new firearms that were backward compatible with pre-banned magazines that held over 10 rounds, and worst of all, forcing all of Smith & Wesson's dealers into legally binding code of conduct. Under this, Smith & Wesson would only sell to authorized distributors and dealers, and authorized distributors could only sell to authorized dealers. To become authorized, the code of conduct basically placed every restriction that the anti-2A crowd could dream up, including you cannot sell at a gun show unless every firearm at that gun show ran a background check, meaning no private sales at gun shows, period. Not sell any guns until they get the okay from NICS, taking away the 3-day limit on delays. They could only transfer to individuals who had a certified safety training. Purchaser could only buy one handgun every 14 days. Dealer must carry $1 million in liability insurance in case they sell a gun later used in a crime, forcing stringent inventory controls and tracing as to allow lawsuits against the $1 million insurance policies, and dealers cannot sell weapons, quote-unquote, attractive to criminals, including selling high-capacity magazines of any brand. It could even be construed as to not allowing the selling of semi-auto rifles of any brand. Smith & Wesson signed the agreement on March 17, 2000. The backlash was furious. Dealers and distributors dropped Smith & Wesson like a bad habit. The NRA called for a boycott over the smart gun aspect of the agreement, while the GOA not only called for a boycott of Smith & Wesson, but of any dealer who sold Smith & Wesson over the more insidious code of conduct. Sales dropped by 40% and the stock price dropped to 19 cents by December. Tompkins sold Smith & Wesson in May 2001 for $15 million to Safety Hammer, taking nearly 90% loss from their initial investment. Safety Hammer made the firearm locks, so Smith & Wesson firearms still received the quote-unquote Hillary hole. But they balked at the rest of the agreement in an attempt to build Smith's reputation back up. Although the official name of the company has changed several times, it is still the same company, and they've been good stewards of the Second Amendment since. You figure with people still boycotting Ruger and the near destruction of one of America's most iconic firearms makers would serve as a lesson against signing off on gun control in an attempt to keep only yourself exempt. But this has still happened fairly recently with In spring 2017, the Illinois gun licensing bill was making its way through the Illinois legislature, which would create duplicate burdens on already federally approved FFLs while creating expensive regulations and penalties beyond these federal regulations. Big box stores were exempted, which meant that this was aimed at driving smaller, mom-and-pop gun stores out of business. When this bill passed the Illinois Senate, it was revealed that the Illinois Firearms Manufacturers Association carved out an exemption for gun manufacturers as well as in exchange for dropping their opposition to the bill. The two main contributors to the IFMA, Springfield Armory and Rock River Arms. Once this was brought to light, Springfield and RRA went into PR spin mode, claiming the IFMA acted outside their wishes and severed their ties, but this rang hollow as the IFMA acted as Springfield Armory's and RRA's lobbying arm in Illinois. The truth about guns dug a bit deeper, and also found out that the IFMA donated to many anti-2A politicians in the 2012 election. Until Springfield Armory and RRA change ownership, my personal opinion is to not reward them with your business. While many gun manufacturers have moved out of anti-2A states to free states, these companies have not only stayed in Illinois, but played politics to carve out exemptions for themselves. Gun dealers and gun owners in their states be damned. And this is why I damn them, yet give Marty Daniel a pass. Marty Daniel made an error in judgment, but it wasn't an attempt to give himself a competitive advantage. And he also learned a lesson not to just listen to the NRA. Springfield Armory and RRA, through the IFMA, attempted to hurt other businesses and gun owners in general with their capitulation. Yes, Springfield Armory has tried to atone by being one of the first to completely sever ties with Dick's Sporting Goods, but that was going to happen anyway, as the writing was on the wall with Dick selling less and less guns while hiring gun control lobbyists so that gesture rings hollow. This is one case where I encourage you to not only not forget, but to not forgive as long as the current ownership is in place. I hope you learned a little gun history / political history with this video, and hope you know what to kind of look out for. I may in the future go in the opposite direction of this video and go over times where gun companies made you say, hell yeah, with their positive actions toward the Second Amendment. Please be aware of where your elected officials and the groups who claim to represent you stand on this Constitution. Please join the GOA, the premier no-compromise 2A organization, and get $5 off your membership by clicking on the link in the description. If you like my content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Interaction really helps with YouTube's algorithms. Also, please check out my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and who I support on Patreon. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.